Welcome to episode 24 of the CVD Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Beaumier, and this episode features Mike Kostantakis. Now, I've never really met somebody like Mike before. I've read about people that are similar to him, and you're definitely going to get some David Goggins vibes when you listen to this episode because Mike does challenges that seem quite ridiculous to a lot of people. They are very challenging physically, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even spiritually. And there's a very specific reason that Mike does these challenges in the first place. And that's because, unfortunately, in 2019, Mike's dad passed away due to cancer. Now, Mike was extremely close with his father and his grandfather. And during the time, right around the time that his dad passed away and right afterwards, Mike did a lot of reflecting on who he was as a person, where he wanted to be, the legacy he wanted to build, and how he wanted to be remembered. And he realized that he had a lot more to offer to the world. He just needed something else to push him past his own past the limitations that he was putting on himself. So Mike's almost always been dedicated to personal growth through fitness and sports and mixed martial arts, but he needed something else. And so that's where these seemingly outlandish ideas came into play. After his dad passed, some of these ideas just started popping into his head, and he's like, I know that I have to do these. Like, they're just stuck in my head. They keep coming up, and now I'm going to do them. So in this episode, Mike talks about who he was as a person before his dad passed away, why his dad passing was such a pivotal moment in his life, and then who he is, who he's been since his dad has passed away, and who he is now. He also walks us through some of the crazy challenges that he's done, such as doing 10,000 squats in 1 month and running 65 miles in 28 hours on his dad's 65th birthday. When he talks about these challenges, he not only talks about the challenges themselves, but he also talks about how they were so challenging physically, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually, and what he's learned from each of those challenges and why he continues to push himself. So, like I said, he is extremely dedicated to personal growth. I've never met anybody quite like him. If you do want to find out more information about Mike, all the links are in the description below, of course. His main channel is Instagram. You can find him at Mike Kostantakis. That's MikeKostantakis. Like I said, all the links are in the description below. So if I misspelt that, rely on the links. As always, if you do enjoy this episode, please consider leaving us a review. It means a lot to support the channel, and we would really, really appreciate it. All right, enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of the CVD podcast. I'm here with Mike Kostantakis. I've practiced that last name like 7 times, so hopefully I nailed it. Mike, I'm super happy that you're here and really interested, really excited to get into your story.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Our mutual friend, Sarah Acerbo, connected us. She was on the podcast last year. And what I've come to learn over the last few years is that amazing people know amazing people. So she connected us and didn't take long where I was like, yep, okay. Mike's got to be on the show, man. He's a cool dude. He's got a really cool perspective, and he's put himself through some crazy physical challenges. So I'm excited because I don't even know all the details of the physical challenges that you've put yourself through. So I'm really looking forward to get into that. But I think overall, this episode is really going to be about who Mike was before your dad passed away in 2019 and who Mike is now, and how your dad passing away was really pivotal moment in your life, and how that's really changed your perspective. So it's really interesting how something so drastic can really create a lot of positive change sometimes. And so I'm really looking forward to digging deeper into that. But before we get into the details, why don't you start off by telling me a little bit more about who Mike is as a person and what you do for work, and then we'll go from there.
So I'm Mike. I'm from Connecticut. I'm hearing a little echo right now, but oh, there it goes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So So essentially, the kind of person I am, very passionate about what I do. I'm a personal trainer out of Lightning Fitness. I love mixed martial arts. I love being open to new ideas, new perspectives, to be able to grow in all realms of, spirituality, emotional, maturity, mindset, physical hardness and whatnot, of just, becoming a better human being, so that one day, that God willing, when I have a wife and kids, that I can pursue that avenue of giving them a great life and showing them what it is to be a great human being. So that's kind of my mantra when it comes to that.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why you're here on the show, for sure. I mean, it didn't take long for us when we started talking to really realize that you're on this. You're really dedicated to this idea of personal growth in so many different aspects, and I think we got a lot to get into, which I'm really excited to do. And tell the listeners a little bit more about like what you do for work.
So yeah, I graduated from University of Tampa back in 2021, and with a business management degree. And I knew that I wanted to own my own business within the fitness industry base. And so my kind of first thing was becoming a personal trainer. What I do through my own LLC, it's called Strength Training. And, it's one-on-one group training, whether it's, weight training involved, or, even, mitt holding that I do now for some clients that are interested in that as well. And a lot of it too is just building my own professional kind of career path as an individual athlete.
Yeah, and the Saiyan strength training, that's, I'm assuming, from Dragon Ball Z. You got the T-shirt on and everything. For anybody on YouTube can see it.
This is actually our Lightning Fitness one. But yeah. This is the Goku. Yeah, but Saiyan strength training. Yep.
That's awesome. So was it strictly just Dragon Ball Z that inspired that name, or was there like something, like a characteristic from the characters? Like what was it that has really inspired you?
It's cool how you asked that, because I really I will only watch Dragon Ball, like in this, like compared to other animes I don't really get into, but Dragon Ball is so significant in my life just due to the moral encompass of, who the characters were, especially, I love like Goku and what he stands for, as a fighter, as a father, and, everything that he strives for is always just finding that next challenge, that next kind of opportunity to be a better, him within that series. And then you also have like Vegeta on the other hand, who was basically this, tyrant, evil individual that, became a family man. And just, I love everything about it. And the fact that, it has elements that I can connect to in my life, it comes a little bit more personal with that. So I really enjoy that aspect to it.
That's really cool, man. I love asking people about, logos that are different, or logos that, I mean, there's clearly some meaning behind Saiyan strength training. So it's awesome to know that. For Comfort by Discomfort, I have a lobster as my logo, and people are always asking. And when I lived in Boston, like, is it because you lived in Boston? Like, because like lobsters? I was like, no, it has nothing to do with that. Literally because of the way that lobsters grow, because they soft and mushy on the inside, and they grow and grow and grow. And it's only when they become super uncomfortable that they hide, shed their shell, and grow a bigger shell, and then come back out sort of into the open. So the stimulus for the lobster to grow is discomfort. If it was comfortable the whole time, it would never actually grow a bigger shell and become physically bigger. So I love those like little personal aspects and about business and logos. So that's really, really interesting. Have you always been in MMA? Have you always been in mixed martial arts?
So essentially, when I was about 5 years old, my mom and dad got me into Taekwondo. That was my first martial art. And I went until I was 15 when I got my black belt, then focused more on baseball. Then from there, my next kind of experience with martial arts, senior year, I wrestled. And that was probably the most life-changing kind of 3 months within my life. Just due to the fact that, that mental toughness side of, the sport itself, it's very rigorous. It's very demanding, physically, mentally. And It's beautiful because I never seen a change in me like no other just through that 3 months of time. And then from there, when I got into college, that's when I did some Brazilian jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai at Gracie Tampa South in Tampa, Florida. And, from there, it just kept evolving of like just different martial arts that I like to participate in. So I mostly do Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu as of right now, though.
Wow, that's really cool. I know that takes a lot of time and discipline to be able to just really develop those skills. I had a conversation with mixed martial artist last year. Her name's Hannah Slater. She was on the podcast and just talking about her like day-to-day stuff. I mean, like she is training to try and compete in the UFC someday. She's like 19 years old right now. So she's got like that end goal in mind. But I was like, damn, like the consistency and the discipline that this girl has is like mad respect. It's just, it's day in, it's day out. And there's so many like little tiny techniques. I've never done like mixed martial arts. I've done kickboxing before, but that was only for like a 3 or 4 month span in 2018. But yeah, there's so many like little techniques and stuff that I think the average person might not realize goes into that type of training.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes it so awesome because of those small details. And it's like, there's no one way to be, styles make fights and styles just make, it's very, when you step in the octagon, when you step into, the ring or on the mats and everything, you're showing the world who you are. You're showing the world who you are through, your will to try to win, your will to display your best techniques and overall skill that you've acquired, and it's very humbling. It's very fun, once you really, get a sense of like how your body moves and how your mind reacts to certain situations. You learn about yourself a lot, like even making the comparison with, martial arts and weightlifting. Weightlifting can help you significantly with your confidence, but also with the MMA side, it's a different kind of confidence itself. It gives you kind of that opportunity to be able to really see what you can handle in like a potential real life altercation. Not to say, people that just lift weights, and someone's just big on the outside. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to protect themselves when needed. You should be able to have a foundation of how to get out of situations that could inevitably come your way, because just the way that life is right now with the world, you never know, and you should always be prepared.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. And you said that it helps you sort of like train not only your body, but your mind to deal with different types of situations. Because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just sort of building upon what you said here, was that with so many different techniques and so many different forms of mixed martial arts, like and how much practice you put in, even when you're in a sparring match or something, you can find yourself in a situation that you've never been in before or didn't expect to be in because somebody else has, developed certain skills or certain techniques or something like that. So you got to be
absolutely
not only physically flexible, but like mentally flexible to try and adapt like in a split second to be able to try to maybe get yourself out of a hold or to like battle with this person, in a different manner. Yeah,
definitely. You got to be able to adapt on the fly. You got to be able to recognize that you don't know everything and that it's always just evolving, so it's humbling in that way too, because you never hit a point to where you say to yourself, I know it all, because that's just not how it is. And that should be the way that it is in life. Even with weightlifting, there's so much more research and studies that are being put out there nowadays for people to become better athletes, in the supplement realm, in the the sleep realm, the training realm itself, with strength, hypertrophy. It goes the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, I was going to jump to that connection as well. Like you saying like, oh, you always need to be a student, like in mixed martial arts. And I know that just from our brief conversation a couple of weeks ago, you're like, I always need to be a student in life as well, because there's not going to be a point where I know it all. There's not going to be a point where, I'm able to be this perfect human. It's literally just, I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm on this, personal development path, and I don't know everything I want to be able to learn, which again is a big big reason why you're here. So, really interesting. You've given me a little bit of insight into, I guess, you growing up. And now I think it was a great time to move into like that overall topic, which is talking a lot about like who you were sort of before your dad passed away, talking a little bit about the experience of your dad passing away in 2019, and then who you've been since 2019 because of your dad passing away. So why don't you give me a little bit more insight into who Mike was before 2019?
Yeah. So growing up as a kid, I was very timid, very unconfident in myself. I just felt average. I felt, I wouldn't say as like an outsider in that way. I would definitely just say I didn't feel like I lived through me, as, the human being that, I thought or didn't know what I was supposed to be, in that way. So a lot of it was trying to fit in. A lot of it was trying to, make connections that maybe weren't going to benefit me in the long run, and then as time went along, playing sports, and just constantly, being put in situations of, just things that didn't make me know that I was actually going to try to move forward in my way. I was more focused on others, but, my grandfather introduced me to weightlifting itself when I was about 12 years old, and my brother and I would go to the YMCA every Saturday. And so that was kind of like the gateway into weightlifting itself. And then by the time I wanted to actually really, truly develop as an athlete to play varsity baseball going into my junior year, that's when, I started just taking it to a whole new level in terms of the discipline, the consistency. It was the first day of junior year that I just, knew I was going to go in the morning at 5 a.m. and then go right back after school. And then I would either, I'd continue that 2 a days, 6 days a week at least. Sometimes we'd go back for a third, just simply because I just wanted to outwork everyone around me. I wanted to just kind of prove to myself that I was able to play at this level. And, I did. I was able to do that. It wasn't until when I wrestled, that's when it was just kind of like another level of like, wow, this is how far that my potential can really be, being pushed mentally and physically in this way that I've never been through in my life, absolutely whatsoever. So by the time I was in college, I continued. There was never a stopping point when it came to wanting to, stop lifting. I always kept that consistency. I always just kept up with that, that dedication of just wanting to, because I knew that it was just a part of my life at that point. So when it was that time of year in July of 2019, when my father did pass away, and I had moments to myself to where I can kind of reflect on not only his overall upbringing through, he immigrated this country when he was 12. He started his own restaurant around my age. And then, from there, when I started work for him, and I just started seeing the real ins and outs of the business and seeing how hard he did work. That's when I knew I had to make the commitment to myself that no matter what, I cannot allow this to bring me down. I have to allow this to transcend my life so that not only continue his legacy, but also continue building mine, because I am not defined by his death, but also I would be lying if I said that wasn't a pinnacle moment in my life that made me realize there's a lot that I have to offer to the world, and, from there, that's when, these ideas just started kind of coming into my mind and, just would go from there, So.
Yeah. When you described your father passing away, you said, I can't let this sort of stop me, but not something to, I can't let this be something to bring me down. Maybe it's something to transcend me. Can you take me back to like that moment or that moment in time? Like, obviously this didn't happen the day after he passed away, I'm assuming. So like, what was that experience like after your dad like passed until that moment? Like, what was that sort of like phase or thought process or mindset like?
So I knew that he was going to pass a few days prior. You know, we were told, and this was where the time I just sat and I just thought, you know, and wanted to really show him and make sure, you know, that he knew that I was going to be okay, that my brother, my mom, we were all going to be okay, because we had to continue living in a way that, you know, built us, that made us better, you know. And a lot of it was due to perspective on my end, in the sense of I knew a old friend of mine, his father passed away when he was in high school, and that was at a much younger age to where I was maybe 21 at the time when that happened, or turning 21, I should say. And, you know, the thought process I had was, you know, right now, although this really does suck, I'm not 9 years old. I'm not 15 to where, you know, my brain is still developing. I'm still like, and, you know, and I have this kind of clear, you know, thought process as to like, why is this happening to me? Why is this, you know, occurring right now? All these questions that like I wanted answered, couldn't have it, you know, but that kind of that shift of like, you know, knowing that other people have gone through something similar, or, you know, you know, even a week prior, there was a story I read of there was like a 9-year-old kid that his mom and dad burned in a house fire to death. And, you know, my thought was, and this is me knowing that my dad is going to pass, and, you know, and I kind of just felt, you know, very, you know, sorry for that kid, because he's not going to go through life in the way that I did. You know, I was I was loved by my mom and dad growing up as a kid, and I cherish that, you know, and, you know, just kind of that, keeping that kind of that tunnel vision that, you know, it's although your situation may be shitty at this time, there's always just so much more out there that you don't know. And that right now, that's all you can really focus on, and trying to move forward in the best way possible is the only thing that you can do, you know? And I never wanted to feel like a victim. There was no way I wanted to be in that mindset of boo-hoo me. Every time someone saw me, they had to, you know, try to pity me with their, you know, sorries and all this and that. And it's just, I didn't like that whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something interesting there. You said that you kind of had to try to move forward in the best way possible. What did that look like for you during that time?
I didn't want to continue going to college. I wanted to drop out. I wanted to help my mom with the business that was basically passed on from my dad. We own a pizza restaurant. You know, she was a nurse for I think about 15 to 20 years before she had my brother and I. And so she was very, it was unknown to her of what that industry was like, because my father never wanted her to be involved with it. And it's a very tough industry. And especially where we were at in terms of location wise, we didn't come across the greatest people. We didn't, you know, come across the, you know, the overall most trustworthy, I'll leave it at that, you know, kind of people that we think that, you know, it could have been better in that sense itself. But, you know, but my mom and dad, they wanted me to get a degree. They wanted me to get a, you know, college degree. And, you know, even though I had to bite my tongue and continue finishing the last 2 years of school, I did. And, you know, and that's when I wanted to grow. I wanted to connect more with myself and really figure out like how I'm going to become better. That was my main goal and mission. So that's when the challenges started, you know?
Yeah. So take me through a couple of those. I mean, Sarah, when Sarah recommended you for the podcast, I asked her why, and she's like, oh, this guy's, you know, he's always pushing himself outside of his comfort zone. He does a lot of self-reflection, and he's done some pretty crazy physical challenges, and we very briefly touched on them when we talked a couple weeks ago. But I'd love to hear about these, and not only about like what they were, but like what the experience, like why did you choose to do them, and what it was like in the moment, what you know, and what you learned about yourself and maybe about life from doing these physical challenges. So excited to get into this.
The first one that I kind of did, this was back in this was October, and I ascended October of my junior year. And
so that's October 2019 or before that?
Yes.
Okay, 2019.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So within that month itself, people will say it's Squattober, even like, you know, Sober October was a thing, you know. And so what kind of where I was at within that time frame, you know, I was doing like the really only vice that I never drank too much. I wasn't really big into that. I enjoyed my weed, you know, and I wanted to be able to kind of put myself in an uncomfortable position, you know, having to give up something like, you know, being sober for that month itself, which, you know, really wasn't all that too bad, you know, letting out a vice, but while also pursuing this kind of physical challenge to where for every day of the month of October, I would go into the gym at 4:30 or earlier, and every day I would do the squat workout, 18 sets of 18 reps. It started with the barbell for I think it was about 2.5 weeks. And then I had some crazy lower back pain. So I had to move into an external stability kind of hack squat kind of ordeal, a V squat thing. But essentially the workout was 18 by 18, which was around 300 and something reps, which would equate to 10,000 reps before the end of the month itself. So that was my thing, 10,000 reps of squats for that month itself. So that was kind of my goal within that time frame. And, you know, within the first week, I couldn't walk up the stairs. I had to crawl up the stairs. I had to stretch more than I had to. And, you know, mind you, this is when I'm still like, I would do that session. I'd have classes. I'd go do my normal gym session. Then I would train jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, you know, so I was just doing it, you know, a lot. My frequency was very high. And, you know, I just didn't really want to stop because this was something I put out for myself. And this was kind of just like the taste of what mental toughness at that time in my life of what that could have been through. So
yeah. So take me through a little bit about the mental part of it, because obviously, I mean, and actually, you know what? Take me through some of the physical stuff, because I mean, obviously, like within a week, you say you can't walk. I mean, you know, I can hear the people listening already just being like, man, if I went to squat like every day for a week, like, yeah, you'd be like trying to crawl up the stairs and stuff like that. So take me through some of the physical stuff and some of the mental stuff. And, you know, was there a moment where you were like, man, fuck this. Like
first day, ninth set, first day. Yeah. So this was stupid on my end. I drank a bang before the workout, and that was not smart on me. I was like a
bang.
Yeah.
Energy
The
drink?
bang energy drink. Yeah. Sorry.
Gotcha. No, it's okay.
And you know, by the time it was after the ninth set, my head was in the bucket, just puking my brains out, had this incredible headache. And I knew that it was from a lack of hydration on my end, but also with the bang energy, especially at just that time in the morning, especially being fasted, not a good call. But from that point, I'm like, is this really worth it? Is this really this and that, you know? And then what actually happened that was actually very, very cool was out of nowhere, my phone lit up and there was no notification. There was nothing. It was just a photo of my dad. And, you know, cause that's what I had at that time. And, you know, from there, I just re-energized within that way. And I was like, all I can do right now is one set at a time. I got 9 more. I'm going to do one set at a time. And that's all I did. And each and every day, that was exactly my thought process. I can't handle what I did yesterday, 2 weeks prior. All I can do is right now, you know, and just trying to inch my way through the workout, you know. It'd take me anywhere from maybe 50 minutes to an hour and a half, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to ask how long 18 sets of 18 takes you.
yeah, just about that, you know.
And what did you choose like a specific weight to try this at? Like, was
My
it like,
body weight. Good question. My body weight. Yeah. So on the bar was 185. I was 185 pounds at the time. So that was kind of like the trajectory of that. So that's the point I left out. But yeah, that was so that was a longer duration of a challenge. And then, the year after, that's when I started the second one, which, this one was going to be a whole day of things. And so I was very ambitious with kind of some of the things that I wanted to do. And the first thing I was starting with was 225 on squats, and I wanted to hit 500 reps. And so I did that. That took a long time. And then there were other things in between that I had that, and luckily at the time I had some very good friends around me. I had my, ex-girlfriend that was very, on top of what, I was doing, and trying to make sure that I wasn't, completely destroying my body in a way that like I was going to be put in the hospital, because at that point, even just getting into some kind of squat after the squats, it felt like my quads were just going to rip apart. And so I had to kind of manipulate some of the things I was doing. So I did more pull-ups, I did push-ups, I did some, crunches. But then there was one thing that I had at the end of the day that I was like, no matter what, I have to do this, which was a mile lunge. So that was kind of one of the things that I, took from that itself. I didn't really care how my legs felt. I just knew I just had to do that itself, and from there, that was kind of, that was a fun one. I remember putting on my dad's shirt and just continuously, I was doing 25 sets of 20 with the 225 for squats, and then just going from there.
Yeah. What did, you mentioned in the first challenge, your dad kind of popped up on your phone randomly. For the second challenge, you mentioned wearing his shirt. Like, what did that do for you?
I'd say it made me feel like he was with me. It made me feel like, that I was him, he was me within that moment itself, of just kind of like that spirit that was there, even though I never really even had a point to where, because a lot of it too, I'll say that I wanted to see my dad during this, whether in those moments I I literally died, or metaphorically, died within let's just say I'm passed out with a dream. That was just kind of my thought process, and whatever I could do to be able to feel, see, and be with him, even if it was for a microsecond, that was very important to me at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a year after that kind of really, really started setting in, of his spirit being with me,
So you mean it did, so you mean after a year of doing those challenges and having those little pieces with you, his spirit didn't sort of sink, or was it just the time period from the time that he passed? It wasn't a year and
time period, but also the escalation of how demanding the challenges were that. Okay. The next year, that's when this one was my absolute kind of favorite. And I love this number for now. I see it everywhere now. It's crazy. And that's when I did the 65-mile run.
65 miles. Okay.
65. So that was for him. He would have turned 65 at that point in time. This is when I was competing in powerlifting, and I was finishing up, and I was done with school, and I knew I was on my way home back to Connecticut, and I'm like, what am I going to do for a challenge this year? What is there something that I haven't done that is super hard, And I thought, I was like, well, how old is he turning? And then I was like, 65. And I'm like, 65. What about that number is so so I was attached to it.
Yeah.
And the first thing that popped up was 65 miles on the bike. And then I was like, that is too easy. Let me think of something else. And then I don't know what it was. I think I saw a commercial on the TV, and I think it was some people running, and I'm like, 65-mile run. And I just kept replaying that over and over and over in my head. And I was like, okay, how can we do this? And then so I came up with this like little game plan that just was not even in the trajectory of what that was supposed to be for that day itself. But so the most I ever ran up to that point was 2 days prior of that challenge itself, where I did 5 miles. My logic was, if I'm able to do 5 miles at like a 6:30 pace the entire way through, I'm going to be able to get through this. No problem whatsoever, because I knew I had to pace myself during this whole thing. So I was able to do it. And I think I even, at one point, I was able to get like a 5-minute and 45-minute mile. That was a time where I was just able to tap into something before that itself. So
did you do all the, like the 65 miles, did you do those like consecutively, like in one day? Was it
17 hours?
17 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started at midnight with my buddy Joe. We start running. Very, very cool, calm pace. I don't know. I think I was maybe keeping like a 10 to 11 minute pace, just super chill, because I knew it was going to be a long day.
Yeah, of course.
And then by the time it was like around mile 22, and I was like 3.5, 4 hours in maybe, I started hallucinating because of lack of sleep. So, my other friend that came earlier that morning, I was on one end of the track and he was on the other at that time. But then when I looked to my right, he's right there next to me. So it was literally just an imaginary person that was on that end. Oh, damn. So I knew at that point, I was like, okay, let me take a little snooze right now. So I took like a 30-minute nap, and I just got back on the grind. And wasn't until mile 50 that my legs were broken. My legs were shot. My feet, every step that I took, dull knives running through me. My hip flexors and hamstrings. I feel like if I even tried to attempt to get into a running start, I would have 1000% torn something. And, and I have 15 miles left. And I'll tell you this too. My goal for that day originally was actually to do 100. And that was probably one of the dumbest things I could have even thought of, like the audacity to think that you can do 100 miles without even doing a marathon prior or like whatever. But I'm like, I'm going to get this 65 no matter what. Just no matter what, I'm going to get this fucking 65 miles. And, that's what I did. I, basically grandma walked it the entire way through, and every step was agonizing. Every step was very, very tough. But, when there's a will, there's a way. And
so you walked the last 15?
Oh yeah.
Did you do any running whatsoever, or just straight walking?
I couldn't. There was no ability within that time that I was even able to get into a running pace itself. Yeah. And a lot of it before was jogging, and then I've had high spurts with not sprinting full out. My buddy wanted me to sprint at one point. Yeah, that would have been that took me back a little bit, but yeah, I just because I wanted to walk out of it like not completely like fucked up to a point where I wasn't
3 months of rehab or something like
exactly. And so I was able to get it done, and I think the recovery time for me was maybe like 3 or 4 days until I was like able to get like good movement back. I did like an ice bath, and I knew I was going to do it. There was just no other way. Yeah.
So tell me, I really want to dive into mindset in terms of like what your thoughts and feelings were during this time. Cause you said that it was mile 22 when you started hallucinating, or was it before that?
Yeah.
It was mile 22. There. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So mile 22 and mile 50, I think those are two pretty important points during that run from what you've described. So mile 22, you're hallucinating. Like, take me through. I know you said like you saw your friend, and then you look and your actual friend is like right beside you, which had to be a little scary. So like, what did you do during that moment? And was there thought of like, okay, I need to like stop doing this, or what was going through your mind and your body at that time?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was actually pretty awesome in the sense of it, like, wow, I'm doing something right now that, honestly, in that moment of time, I'm like, there's no one better than me right now. And, as selfish as that was, that's what got me through it. I'm like, there's no motherfucker out there that wants to put themselves through this, but I will. And that's what makes me fucking special right now. And that's just kind of like how I thought through these challenges itself, that mindset, because I'm not going to let myself even try to, you'll have your doubts creep into you. You'll have all these things, but you'll know what you really want to do at the end of the day, and how you speak to yourself is super important. If you're going to tell yourself that you feel this pain and you don't like this pain, all right, you don't, and maybe deep down, if you feel this pain and you don't like this pain, well, tough shit, you're going to like this pain and you're going to embrace it because this is yours. This is yours only. No one can take this away from you right now. Mm-hmm. And within that time frame itself, there was, I just knew it was just a lack of sleep. That was all. And so I was just caught the snooze, and then just got back on the runs. And then when like the feelings of kind of doubt and almost like, oh, I have a lot more running to do, was around mile 40 itself. That's when the feet just started feeling it each and every time. But all the way around in terms of how my lower body felt, 50 done. Donezo.
Yeah. So take me through like I know you said you felt like if you got into a runner stance, your hamstrings would probably snap and your hip flexors might give out. So take me through if there's other physical things that were happening at mile 50, take me through that. But also like, you talk about, the self-doubts and whatnot. What was the sort of narrative through your head at that point? And was there a moment where, thoughts were creeping in being like, you need to stop, you need to quit or something like that?
So at mile 50, and I was like, okay, I have 50 more miles to 100. That's not happening. I got 15 to 65. That is happening. So that was kind of like my gateway into like that next level itself of like, okay, I can handle this. I can do this. This is like, I'm already more than halfway done. Like there's no point of just even stopping right now. There wasn't really even a point of where I really truly wanted to quit. Like, cause my car was right there, everything. Cause I did it on my high school track. And,
I was just going to ask about the track. Cause you mentioned the track a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was training for my first marathon, I did one of my like 11 or 12 mile runs, like around a track. And when I told like my, friends and family, they were like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to this, high school track to run my 11 miles. They're like, are you crazy? Cause like, I think it was 11 miles. Maybe it was 16. I don't remember, but it was like 64 laps or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were like, are you kidding me? Like you're going to drive yourself nuts running in a circle like that. And I was actually like, I kind of want to push myself through that because it's going to be even more difficult than trying to run, on a road, like 16 miles straight.
100%.
Like I think it'll be harder. And I'm actually up for that challenge. So let's go do it. So it's crazy. It's pretty wild to think that you did 65 miles just running around your track. Do you know how many laps that is?
God, that's over 65 times 4. What is that? Over 200 and...
You were on a mile track?
Mile track, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
One way around is a quarter of a mile, so it would be 260 laps. So gotcha. that would be the amount.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I just, from that point, like, I like... Also, there were things in my favor. I'm not going to say that like the weather was beautiful that day. Like in a way, it's like, I think it was just cloudy. It wasn't hot. And mind you, this is August 29th. This is where it should be fucking screaming hot. God was on my side that day. So I didn't deal with that heat side of things. So in that way, it was easier of a run itself. I had incredible friends with me the entire time. Almost the entire time, I should say. They would always constantly check up on me, and I would be on the phone with some friends from out of state, just talking. So, just during some moments of where I was alone, I was just happy to be there. I was just like, this is really fucking awesome. That I'm able to put myself in a position willingly to show people what is possible, because like no running training prior, I did nothing whatsoever in terms of like, I would maybe like within those last 3 weeks, maybe ran a mile or two a day. And the last heavy run was 5 miles itself. Because I'm like, what preparation can I really even do for this at this point in time itself? There's nothing. Yeah. So it's just like, I knew it was just all willpower at that point. And I'm like, I did all these squat things, and I'm like, I can handle some running, because I knew what that pain, like, it was like almost like every challenge along the way was setting me up, in that direction to kind of, make me be able to do it,
Yeah, absolutely. And so take me through the end of that challenge. Like when you hit mile 65, after you had just been through all of that pain, all that discomfort, all that, self-talk and everything, like what did that moment feel like? What happened? Did you break down? Like, what was that moment like?
I was hysterical. I was, even you asking me that makes me, go back to that moment. I never felt so proud in my life. I never felt so connected to my mind, body, and soul, and just kind of all that pain of how worth it was. There was no trophy. There was no standing ovation. There was nothing in that. And I didn't want that whatsoever. I knew that within my heart and soul, I gave everything that I could to achieve what I wanted to that day. And, through all that pain, from not quitting, from just wanting to do something to better myself and to show others that there is a possible way to better yourselves as well. I felt a high like no other.
Yeah, no kidding. And when you say connected to your mind, body, and soul, did you also feel connected to your father?
Yeah, in some ways I did, I definitely knew that he was with me for some part of the way. I had no doubt in my mind that there was a higher power leading me that day. It shouldn't be possible, but it is, especially when you, like, for me, I draw a lot of inspiration from David Goggins. I love that man. Mm-hmm. I don't even know him as a person I've never met him, but as I watch and as I see him, speak through his soul and hearing how he, went through this grueling 100-mile run at 270 pounds from the time that he did that, I was just like, I can do this too, and if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for, I don't know, people like that, are heroes to me. And I think they do a lot of great in the world. And, if I can even put a fraction of that out there, I'll die a happy man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, just sharing your story with me definitely inspired me. I've done 3 marathons, and I've been thinking about doing an ultra marathon, and your story is definitely going to act as inspiration for me and for anybody listening. I'm sure that, there's going to be some people that walk away from this episode inspired as well. So you mentioned that at some point, during that 65-mile run, you were like, I'm so happy. Like, what a blessing it is that I get to choose to do this. And my question is, so why do you choose to do these things? Like, why do you try to do like some of the hardest things that you can think of? Like, what is the entire point behind doing that? Because there's this line of, I want to do something difficult to challenge myself. And there's this line of like, if I push myself too far, I might be in rehab for 3 months. So like, why do you do this to yourself? And why do you continue to do these physical challenges?
I'll answer in 2 different ways. I'll answer through my ego first. I'm built different. There is no one else out there like me. And I take that with full pride. But then that other side of like that false ego, which I combat with times. But no, I'm here to build my legacy. I'm here to, I knew my potential was to be great. And especially when my grandfather told me that you're a special kid, you're a special dude. And then when he passed away, and then I started kind of like doing more challenges in it for him and, that kind of thing. Like even with like the 5,000 pull-ups recently, that's when I was like, all right, I'll prove you right. I got you, and then just this overall, like, this story of how I grew up in terms of me. I had a blessed childhood. I went to a great school, public school, had, good friends and whatsoever, but how I felt about myself, very timid, unconfident, growing to this dude that's doing superhero like things, in that way of I was just like, I love it, and I thrive off of that, because I know there are people out there that are better than me. I know there are people out there that want to be better than me, and not in that not like selfish way, but that's just how it is. There's always going to be someone better than you out there. And it's just like, you got to be prepared, be ready for it. What if there's a time where, I meet David Goggins and he says, all right, let's go for a run. I should be ready for that. That's kind of like just kind of the thought process, always just be ready, especially with, when you have someone like, Jocko Willink and just Navy SEALs and overall special forces of, these humans that go through the most immense amount of rigorous training that is just incomprehensible, that like me doing what I'm doing right now is nothing compared to that. It may be hard, but it's not hard in that way, especially when you're stepping forth and you're serving your country, you're serving the people around you, your brothers, and that kind of thing. I love that camaraderie, if I wanted to have another career path in that way, I would 100% want to try to become a Navy SEAL. Right now, my path is on a different kind of thing. So who knows, maybe in the next lifetime, that's something I'll pursue. But, it's kind of having that balancing thing, it's like you want to tell yourself you're the greatest motherfucker around. And it's also that you have people out there in the world that are doing better than you, that want to do better, all these different things. And, you kind of have to, ground yourself in that way, recognize that you're human, but you're not human though, and that's just kind of like the thought process I had.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting perspective. And just now you touched on your ego and you said like, oh, I'm going to give you the ego answer first and then the other one. And a couple of weeks ago when we talked, you had said something that I'd like to sort of unpack a little bit. You said egos are designed to compare ourselves to others to create this shield of armor. And so it's something that we're always combating. I don't know if if it ever goes away, but like, what's been your experience with that? And you want to expand a little bit on that statement?
Yeah. It'll never go away. But it's an illusion, it's, you are your thoughts and your emotions. Someone like Alan Watts, if anyone's never, heard of him before, he is probably, one of the most intellectually grounded human beings of like understanding what this is. Like right now, I'm talking to you through a computer right now, and you're across the world. And like, how does that even occur? Like, what are the chances of that? But, he talks about like, like if you want to get rid of your ego per se, it's like, who's asking? Like, is it you? Is it that false ego side of things? It's something that we create, and it's something that we all have to kind of protect ourselves from outside danger of words and, kind of things that, can put us feeling less of where we're at, and I'll tell you, I'll be open, a lot of the things that I've learned through that itself have come through psychedelics. I recently went on a ayahuasca journey.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it was, I'll just kind of keep it brief in the sense of like, I didn't get what I wanted. I got what I needed, in the sense of, a lot of the insights that I had during that experience itself was beautiful for me, and, I remember at one point me leaving the ceremony to kind of just go on my own path within that moment, not saying to break rules or do anything like that. It made me kind of just sit and be And, I was able to recognize that this path that I walk on is mine and mine only, and no one can take that away from me. And all I can really focus on is the here and now, and how I'm going to, there is no past, there is no future. All of that that's been done, hasn't been done, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Even us, come on. Do we really fucking matter that much? It's that's why I have to check myself sometimes with that ego side of understanding hey man, just because you do all this and that, you think you're all superhero giddy. It's you're nothing within this entire universe of the sense of it's all about you, because it's not. Mm-hmm. There is something more. We all have divine energy within us that lives through us, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in Allah, or whatever kind of thing that keeps you alive and that makes you feel like you're connected to that side of it itself. There's so much that we don't know, and all we do know is that there is only now, so it's how you kind of interpret that to make your life better, not even just for yourself, it's for the others around, even for your community, the people that you may or may not meet in the future itself. It's all these actions, I can be doing, think of it like this. Let's say you have a guy that's getting up, getting ready to go to work on an everyday basis, and he wants to make this routine if he's going to go to the gym prior. And, let's just say that, he keeps it going for maybe 2 weeks, but then he stops. Then maybe he comes across someone that is hey, I really not feeling good about myself. I need to get back on track, and, just kind of want to build this overall consistency and discipline to, being a better me, and that person can't really, put out their full answer because they weren't living that within that moment itself. They can try to tell you, just the basic rules. You can do it. Anybody can do it. You could do anything you set your mind to. It's that's all motivation, man. That shit doesn't exist. It's what your soul really wants to do. People don't even focus on that, who their soul is. And, me going on these, journeys itself, that's what I'm trying to find and be more connected to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think that, we have a lot in common in the sense of these physical and mental challenges are a way to get more connected with who we really are, and to try to almost shed away some of those layers of bullshit that we put in front of ourselves sometimes, to really get into the deeper level of okay, who am I really? Right? Yeah. Who am I? But then, okay, take it further and further and further. And it's okay, who am I really? Exactly. Right. And I think that being committed to that sort of self-discovery and self-learning and purpose and fulfillment and finding what sets your soul on fire is what makes this life so amazing. And being on that journey compared to just kind of sitting around and letting life happen to you, I think it's just such a transformation. And again, when we talked a couple weeks ago, you said something along the lines of comfort kills the soul and brings you to a place of ease and complacency. And I want you to expand a little bit on that topic and tell me if there was a time in your life where you kind of lived that. Was there a time in your life where you were just, in your comfort zone consistently and you were just, really, really frustrated or really just unfulfilled?
Yeah. It definitely does, and I'll say this, when you live a life of, trying to fulfill your purpose and discovering who you are, and because you'll never truly know who you are deep down, but you can make ways to have an idea, at least. You will recognize that you are not perfect, and that there are even a lot of times within my life that, I felt sorry for myself. I've done, even in the simplest way of, me stepping into the shower and saying, I'm going to do a cold shower right now. I've had moments where I've turned it all the way cold, bend in for 5 seconds and I'm like, I'm good, I'm done. Boom. And that's weak, and I'm not afraid to, share those sides of it, because I think at the end of the day, if you're not going to be authentic with not only yourself, but to others, then who are you doing right? Like, seriously, and there's times where, maybe I don't want to train. Maybe my training is kind of like, I give like these subtle excuses that like I created in my mind, like, oh, you got this coming up this week. Maybe you should like chill out on this back off set, these kind of just scenarios that you like put yourself through. And it's like, that's weakness. And, trying to defeat that is a very hard thing to do within itself, because as you grow and as you become better, the wisdom that you're trying to acquire, and, even for me, I could be very hard on myself at times, to where, let's just say if someone were on this diet for, 2 weeks and then they get off for 1 day and they're like, well, screw it now. And then they just get back onto their old lifestyle. It's like, you just got to pick off where you left off, and that's all you got to do. Like, even I'll tell you this. So like last week, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do the Murph on every day. There wasn't no set time, because like are you familiar with the Murph by any chance?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So Murph is a workout that was that this man, this noble, honorable man that was U.S. Navy SEAL, his name is Lieutenant Michael Murphy. Him and his team of 3 other Navy SEALs were in the Red Wing operation. This was back in 2001 or 2 or 3, but they were basically surrounded by the Taliban, and they were in a gun battle fight with over 200 plus people, and it was just 4 on 200. And during this gun battle, Michael Murphy went on his own to find a location to where he can make a last minute call to get help, for his men.
Is there a movie based on this
Lone
one?
Survivor?
That's it. Okay, yeah.
Lone Survivor.
Yeah. So I've seen the movie, but I wasn't familiar with. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and he made that call, and a few other of his men were not able to make it out, and actually the Apache that was coming to help them out was unfortunately bazookaed and
shot down.
Shot down.
Yeah.
And so every year there's the Murph Challenge. It was an old workout that he used to do, which is a mile run followed by 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and a mile run in a 20-pound weight vest. And the thing that I'm doing this year in honor of him, in honor of the men and women that served for, during the Memorial Day weekend, I'm going to attempt to see how many Murph workouts I can do in one day, or hit the number that I have in my mind to do. And, and I made a commitment last week. I was going to try to see how often I was able to do the Murph every day. And I think I was on maybe 4 or 5 days or something. And then just the weekend came, and it wasn't something in my mind. Just like, I just started feeling sorry for myself, and it was just kind of, it's kind of pathetic, because then I was just like, wake the fuck up, man. You're doing this more for yourself right now, rather than the people that really matter, or that matter, of that sacrifice their lives. You can fucking get through this workout on an everyday basis. So this is what I'm going to do. You're going to do this 90 days consistently. You're going to start the first one with a 20-pound weight vest. Then you're going to go 30 and then 40. So basically I'm like peeking my way there. And it's like, I don't give a fuck how you feel. You're going to fucking do it. You're just going to go. So now I'm on day 5 right now. I'll be doing that session after my client later on today. But, at the end of the day, it's not all about you, and the more that you try to feel sorry for yourself, the more that you try to just feed yourself these lies and excuses that we all create, that's when it just all goes downhill. So you better act on it quick, start living through your soul. rather than living through your own selfish desires, because it's all meaningless at the end of the day.
So how does somebody start to act through their soul?
Take a good look in the mirror and just sit and just talk yourself through. You're going to have those moments to where I do it almost every day. I'll sit in my car, I'll look myself directly in the mirror, I'll talk to myself. I don't care if that's weird or not. That's just the reality of it. You know, if you want to be in tune with who you are, then you really better start trying to find those answers, because you will find those answers. You know, if there's something going on in your life right now that you're like, I need to fix this. I don't know what I need to fix specifically. Like Jordan Peterson says, if you sit on that question long enough, you will find that answer. And a lot of it comes down to doing uncomfortable things. Getting up to go get a workout in the morning early. Well, you don't want to do that? Go after work. You don't want to take a cold shower? Tough shit. It's going to make you feel better. Trust me. You will never find light in light. You will only find light through darkness. And that is absolutely the 100% truth. And that was said by David Goggins himself. A lot of the times we feel sorry for ourselves. We feel sorry for the positions that we're in, financially, emotionally, physically, mentally. All you need to understand is that you are your own person, and everyone is their own person that has their own shit. Everyone goes through something. Yeah. It is not, everyone wants to compare one another on a daily basis. And you know, that's why social media is such a curse and a blessing, but mostly a curse if you allow it to be. And like, honestly, I'm almost ready to just dip off of it, because really it's something that, you know, you're designing your life however you want, you know, and some people will make their life seem greater than what it is, you know, and you don't know that at the other edge of the screen, and your life may suck at that point. But trust me, there's more suck in knowing how far you are not willing to go than actually going through it. So,
yeah, that's a really interesting statement. I mean, there's often times you put so many barriers in front of yourself, or you think that like the scary thing to do is like this big, huge thing. And then you start to do it and realize that it's not.
Yeah.
Right. Really, really interesting. And I mean, you talk about social media and this curse of comparing ourselves. And honestly, it's a big reason why I have people like you on the show. It's why I started the show to begin with, is because there's so much comparison that we do because we're human beings.
Absolutely.
But what we see on social media is not, like you said, it might be real life, but oftentimes it's, you know, sharing highlight reels and whatnot. Yeah. And one of my friends on social media, she really sums it up the best. She says, what you see is like the tiniest, even if somebody takes a picture and posts it, it's a millisecond in time, right? Like they could literally take a picture, like smiling, whatever, and turn around and be completely miserable, right? There's a meme where, it was a Toronto Maple Leafs hockey game, and the Leafs are getting spanked like 5-1 or 6-1. And there's like this couple in the crowds, and like she's taking a selfie of them, and he's like, they're all smiling. And then as soon as the picture's done, he's just like,
I've seen that. Yes. Yes, I have seen that.
Yes. And he's absolutely miserable. Right. And just like, not to say that every single person does that or anything like that, but the point of bringing that up is the fact that like, it's a millisecond in time, or it's a 30-second video. And we share what we want to share. And a lot of times we want to share the good things that are going on, not necessarily the shitty times that are going on in our lives. And so getting people on the show like you to, you know, actually give some context to their lives and say, I've got here, but I've put myself through a bunch of shit to get here. Yeah. Or I've like faced, you know, I've sat in front of the mirror and looked at myself every single day for the last 2 years to be able to identify what sets my soul on fire. Like those are the details that I want to share. Those are the types of stories that I want to share, because it's more realistic, and it actually shows that, you know what, we all do struggle. We all do face some difficulty, but there is a way to find what you really want to do. And there's a way to really step into your authentic self and live life the way that you like really want to do it, not just kind of like passively letting things happen.
It's a never ending process. You know, people that think that it's going to be done overnight. It's just, it's all a lie. Everything that you think that these people that are at the highest level of wealth and overall security and, money, fame, power, whatever, it's not developed in, just 1 or 3 to 5 weeks, or, it's an ongoing thing, and you have to accept that, because once you let that settle in, then you could really start your journey. Then you could really be in this moment and really enjoy living in this moment. People that look forward to the weekend, I can't resonate with at all, because like, one, I don't live that lifestyle of like going out on a every weekend basis. And if you do and you have a great life, then more power to you. But, that shouldn't be the goal of just having fun. I think that's, especially as men, we're designed to be, individuals that can handle, things that are thrown to us at life, to be able to move forward in a better direction than where we were at before. Because if you're all just concerned about like when the next drink is, when the next time you're gonna just be your authentic self, that's when it's just kind of like, are you really living your life to the fullest itself? Like, seriously,
Yeah.
And like, for me, like, listen, 24 years old, there's a lot that I know, and there's even more that I don't know. Like it's like I think it was Aristotle that said this. He's like, the more that I know, the more I realize that I know nothing.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense, because it's like, if you walk through life in this manner of not willing to be or learn different ideas, or different ways to be simply, because at the end of the day, we're all on our own path, and that's what's the cool thing about this life itself.
Yeah.
And if I had to say anything to anyone that like wants to be able to really dial in and be that best authentic version of themselves, it's like, you got to be the hero of your own story. And I say that through Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan has said that before. But even in the sense of like me, we're in this right now, like sometimes like I embody Goku as a character, in the sense that like, do I walk around thinking I'm this fucking anime dude? No. But like, do I draw inspiration from like this fictional being that it's everything that I want to be in life? Absolutely. Like this badass martial artist that is just an overall courageous, honorable, and noble man that is like looking after his family, looking after his friends, looking after for the universe itself. It's like, I can do that. I'm alive. I'm not going to do it in the sense I'm going to be flying around and fucking busting Kamehamehas out. But at the same time, I can do everything in my own power to make my life better, and others around. Because that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Because you have no idea why you're here. You have no fucking clue. Are you kidding me? And if you think you do, you're crazy, because it's never ending. It's a never ending process.
Yeah, it really never, it truly never ends. Unfortunately, this does have to come to an end, but we've been through a lot. And usually my last question is, what's your one piece of advice for somebody that wants more out of life? But I think you really covered that at the end there, because that was your sort of piece of advice. And I think that's going to really resonate with some people. Before we really wrap things up here, Mike, any last comments, anything else you want to add?
Live true to you. You may not know what you want to do in life right now, and that's okay. You may be 15 years old, 20, 30, even 40. You may not even know what that purpose of yours is. And if you're questioning, is life really worth it? It most certainly is. You just have to be willing to find that answer, because no one else is going to save you but you. There is no one else that will care more about you than you. You'll have your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your family, all this and that, which is great. Supporting is great. But there's no one that's going to save you but you.
I love it. It's a little mic drop moment there. Mike, I really appreciate your time, your effort, your stories, your insight, and your mic drop quotes. No pun intended. Yeah, this has been really fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with me and to share openly and honestly and vulnerably. I really appreciate it. And I know the viewers, the listeners are going to take something away from this too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. It was great talking to you, man.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Stay in touch.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it and that it inspired you on your journey to living your best life. Now make sure to check out the show notes below for a rundown of today's show with all the important links, such as where to find the guest online and important resources that they may have mentioned. Also make sure to share this episode with a friend or family member and subscribe so you get the notifications when new episodes are released. I absolutely love hearing feedback from you guys, so I encourage you to share a review on the platform you're listening on and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from today's episode. Now it's time to go out and build the life of your dreams one step at a time. And remember, the only way to be comfortable is to be uncomfortable first.